I'm here with an amazing leader, Parker. Parker, how are you, man?
I'm so good, doing
Well,
so well.
for any viewers, this is conversations. Parker and I are literally going to have a conversation. So I'd advise you to get a notebook out. I cannot have a notebook because that would be kind of hard to do while having a conversation. But Parker, tell us a little bit about you, your journey. What do you do if you have kids?
Well, I'll start with the personal stuff. Man, I do have a child, and I'm married to an amazing woman. Her name is Zoe. My son, his name is Saint, and yeah, we're the Richardsons, man. We're the clan, we're the fam.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're the tribe. So we live in Houston right now, Houston, Texas, and I never thought that I would live in Texas ever.
Yeah.
My wife is from Texas, and so kind of the Houston area, different parts of the Houston area. They've lived kind of all over, but right now we reside kind of South Houston. And so anyway, my journey is really, really interesting. And I know we're kind of speaking more in the church vein of
Yeah.
things. But I'm a pastor. I'm not the pastor of our church. I serve my in-laws. They started a church called High Point Church about 4 years ago. And I stepped in as the connections pastor, but kind of leading all kind of expressions to a certain extent of our ministry. So call all kind of outward facing, like all of our outreach and our small groups and kind of our Sunday morning volunteer base. Those are kind of the veins in which I lead. So anyway, yeah, like I said, man, I never thought that I would be a pastor in a church, and I was pretty hesitant towards church for a majority of my life. Pretty resistant to Jesus for a majority of my life too, because I just never saw really great representations of who Jesus was until I was 20 years old, man. And I was in my bedroom, and there was a pretty large party going on outside of my room, and you didn't necessarily even ask for my how I came to Jesus, but I'm just
I love
going
it.
into it, man. I'm just going into it. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Who you are.
uh,
So
yeah. So man, like I said, never thought I would really step inside the church or pursue Jesus, but I was at a very, very low place. And I've done everything in the book up until kind of that space. And
mhm.
so all of the different things that I had tried, all the different things that I had done, nothing really ever satisfied. Nothing really ever filled that hole in my life. Met the really need that I actually felt like I needed to get met. And so anyway, I was like, Jesus, if you're real, this is me in my bedroom all alone. It's like, Jesus, if you're real, like, come into my heart. Is that what I say?
Yeah.
Like, is that what that means? I don't even know. Like, I begin a
Yeah.
relationship with you. What does that even mean? Like, I'm just speaking words into the atmosphere right now. Like,
Right.
what is this? What does this look like? And so anyway, I was a waiter at a restaurant during that time, and I went into work a couple days later, and there was a guy, and he was like, "Dude, do you love Jesus?" And I said, "I guess." I, I, I like, I was alone in my bedroom, kind of walked him through that story, and he was like, "Dude, just come hang out with me and a couple guys." And so I did, and then kind of got involved with the high school ministry from there. And I was like, "This is fun. I like hanging out with high schoolers." I was
Mhm.
20 at the time, so I was like, I like hanging out with high schoolers. Like they're fun. Getting to be seen as kind of like a mentor figure, although I didn't have anything figured out.
Right.
Um, and then just kind of stepped in that journey from there, and really kind of stepped into full-time ministry about it was about 5 years ago
Mm.
now. So I was 25ish, about to be 26, and that's when I stepped into contributing to a church. And so yeah, that was that was kind of my, then just been in it ever since, man. And
Yeah.
honestly, wouldn't want to do anything different. Like, I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. It's fun getting to kind of represent Jesus in a way that I felt um, like I wanted someone to represent Jesus to me,
Yeah.
just someone to be really real and authentic versus kind of some of these spiritual cliches that I think can lose their power, lose their meaning. Someone that just can have honest conversation with me.
Mhm.
So that's my heart.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love that. Every story obviously is different. Even me, like I didn't grow up in the church, got saved when I was 15 in a small group at a church. I literally went for pizza and to hang out with my friends. I was just a basketball kid and got saved. And I love even hearing your story about your role right now. I think there's some to unpack in that. I think that's very similar to what my wife and I have been doing for about 3.5 years. We also served in youth before that and helped plant a church. So, dude, tell me a little bit about your ministry journey. I think you say cliches. I think a cliche that frustrates me is, yeah, man, I just felt called to ministry.
Mm,
Like it's my calling. It's like, well, I think everyone's calling is to be in ministry of some sort, whether that be full time
yeah.
or not. But I'm super interested to hear about that. Like, what was that indication of like, I'm going to be all in on this?
Yeah, dude, that's a great question, man. Because I was living in New York, and I was a part of a church there, and I loved just getting to contribute to something that was so much bigger than myself.
Hmm.
And the ministry that I was serving alongside at the time, they truly were doing incredible things in the city, and it was just like, man, like I love getting to be a part of a church, be a part of an organization, be a part of a group of people that
Hmm.
are just like actually willing to be selfless and actually willing to like serve people at their lowest moments.
Yeah.
And so it was in New York that I kind of like developed that, like that hunger and love of like, man, how can I position myself around these type of settings more regularly? Because I'm leaving fulfilled, like I'm leaving full. I'm not just leaving with that kind of instant, gratification hit. I'm really leaving just like, man, energized and excited. And of course, I'm a super relational person. I mean,
Yeah.
I love people, man. Like even just this call with you. I mean, this is the first time you and I really ever had conversation, but I'm like, dude, like, how can I get around Josh? And if it's got to be on Zoom, then it's got to freaking be on Zoom. Like,
Yeah.
let's do it. And so anyway, then a buddy of mine, he asked me to move to Tulsa to help launch a new church in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Mm.
And I was like, well, never been to Tulsa before,
Right.
and never been a part of a church plant before, but I don't sure. Yeah, cool. Let's do it. So I moved, and that was kind of where that feeling of just like that I felt in New York, just kind
Hmm.
of like, man, like getting to be a part of something bigger than myself, getting to like build something tangible,
Yeah.
but also, focus so much more on the intangibles of
Hmm.
what people are feeling, experiencing, and really encountering Jesus with, then that's what I want to be a part of. So in Tulsa, of course, we're contributing to that. We're helping build this brand new church that was like, I have no idea what it means to be on a leadership team of a
Yeah.
church. Like,
Right.
no idea. But that's just kind of my personality too, where it's like, let's try it. Like, let's go for it. Let's do
Hmm.
it. So I moved, and I'm so thankful that I did, because it was kind of in that season where I learned a lot, where we failed a lot.
Hmm.
Um, we made a lot of mistakes. We were just, honestly, I think young kids just
Yeah.
kind of trying to figure it out. But it was through that experience really kind of bedded in me, like, man, I want to do something like this with my life.
Hmm.
And where is that? I don't know. What does that look like? I don't know. But it was in that year that really an opportunity. We kind of ended the church plant. The guy that was leading it went to serve alongside of a pastor there in Tulsa, and so I was kind of left in this space of like, man, well, what can I do? Where can I go? What transition does that make? Like Tulsa isn't home, but I feel like I've kind of had like this launching pad to be able to go and do something with. And so that's whenever an opportunity with Elevation Church in North Carolina really came about, where I was able to take and just kind of get some practical hands-on learning experience.
Yeah.
And it was through that kind of process of learning alongside Elevation that I was like, man, this is a place that I would love to contribute towards, and be a part of, and stay and invest in, and really start to build some roots.
Hmm.
And so stepped on as a youth pastor, then quickly became kind of the associate campus pastor, and then that kind of quickly transitioned to really leading the campus as a whole,
Yeah.
and kind of being the guy in that space, because there was a lot of course, Elevation Church. If you're not familiar with Elevation Church, if you're listening, larger church with a lot of different campuses up and down the East Coast. And I just simply got to play a part of one of the campuses. So
Yeah. Well, it's so cool. I think that something that I see probably consistent in your life is number one, saying yes, like more lines, hey, I don't necessarily know, but let's do it. And I feel like
yeah,
even for my wife and I, that's just kind of been our journey. It's like we didn't have this 7 generations of pastors and church planning at more lines. We were just like young and hungry leaders who were cool with doing whatever it took to get somebody to raise their hand at the end of service to give their life to Jesus. And just so happened to continue to grow into, like you said, like I don't even know what a leadership team is. I still don't. Like I'm on one, and I'm,
yeah,
you
it's
know,
true.
we're
It's
just
true, man.
in more meetings, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly right.
but I mean, so for somebody listening to this, a young leader, literally right out of the gun, what advice would you give to them?
Mm. You know, it's interesting. So much we're praying for peace about a decision,
Hmm.
and I've found this has been true in my life, but of course, leading in other regards and leading people and hearing stories about people, that peace so much comes after the decision is made
Hmm.
versus prior to making that decision. And so I, whenever you threw out the word calling earlier,
Right.
it's like what's my calling, like what's my purpose, like some of these big things that we're trying to narrow down to be like, it has to look like this, it's going to resemble, like I have my life planned out, and if something else happens, then I'm out of God's will in some type. And I heard Pastor Stephen say one time, like God's will is whatever, because like if I'm following Jesus, if I'm obeying what it is that he wants from me, then there's going to be a lot of assignments. There's going to be a lot of different places maybe that looks like, that I can live that out in, versus just thinking it's going to look like this, it's
Mhm.
going to play like this. So I'm, kind of going back to the thought of what you said, the observation about like say yes, and so much the clarity comes after the commitment
Yeah.
almost, rather than thinking like I have to have clarity before I commit.
Mm.
um like maybe just say yes, maybe just commit, and then the
Right.
Lord's gonna reveal himself, he's gonna show up, he's gonna provide in that yes, um along the way.
Yeah.
So I think if there's a young leader listening, you know don't wait too long, because in your waiting you could maybe
Mhm.
waste some of your time,
Yeah.
or waste somebody else's time too, rather than saying yes and then figuring out along the way. But also in that same breath though, I've made decisions without wise counsel too,
Mm.
where I've said yes in an immature immature headspace as well. So I think in saying yes, have people around you that are contributing to you, versus just thinking that you can go about it alone.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. I think I mean, you think about, I'm Gen Z, barely. I was born in 98, so I'm like right on the edge, you know. But even like millennials as well, I think there's two things that I think that we have consistently been labeled as, the people who can't make decisions or do it impulsively. And the other side of it, don't want a leader, or like the Christianese word is submission. Like I don't,
Mm,
there's a lack of submission. And you said even like wise counsel, I think it's imperative for any young leader to have a pastor, to have somebody in your life, even if you don't follow Jesus, somebody in your life that will tell you, hey, the patterns you're living are wrong, or the way you're treating your wife are wrong. And being okay with
yeah,
that and being able to receive that. I would not be the leader I am, the 20% efficient leader I am right now, without consistent challenge and
yeah,
without even rebuttal, saying yes, sir, or yes, pastor,
yeah.
absolutely.
And to that, sorry for cutting you
Oh,
off,
you're
man.
great.
Because that's brilliant. And the reason why it's brilliant is because if I come to my pastor, or if I come to my leader with a decision made,
Mhm.
then I feel like that can be very, very dishonoring. Rather than involving your leader, the person that you're saying that you are receiving from, listening to, that you believe in, that believes in you, if you're not involving them in your decisions, but rather you're coming to them with your decisions,
Mhm.
then I think that that's a huge miss,
Yeah.
and a sign of dishonor more than something that's honoring.
No, absolutely. And I would say, um, I've had to ask myself this question, and I've been asked this: why didn't you go to them first? Because
Mm,
I think we always seek people who might give us comfort, or might just be our buddies, so they're telling us the right thing to say. Versus, and even the other side of it, asking yourself, why didn't I feel comfortable calling them, or
mm,
is there a relational disconnect? And I think on both sides of the coin, I think we can almost. I had somebody a couple months ago say this to me, and it's been in the back of my brain, that sometimes we almost submit more to a leader than we do Jesus.
mm.
And almost to a default, I think that we do, but then I also think that we always have to go back. Okay, why am I going to this person versus my pastor? If I'm not going to my pastor, or if I'm going to him to a default before I pray about it or seek my wife,
Yeah.
or, there's, I just feel like there's so many layers to decision making, and so many layers to what we call leadership. But I also think
Yeah.
we overcomplicate everything. A simple
So
yes and
true.
a simple no, So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about your journey right now. So you're a connections pastor. What is something you're learning in this season?
Mm. The idea of multiplication.
Mhm.
Um, it's so the idea that in order to grow, in order to scale, I need to get what's in my hands out of my hands. And this has came easier in at different times of my life than it has at others. And so like right now, leadership is so much more about influence,
Mhm.
um, than a position, or I believe leadership is a perspective, more than it is just a position or title that you have. So so I'm looking at right now, well, what are the things in my hands, what are the things that I'm doing, what are the tasks, what are the responsibilities that I carry, and who am I bringing along, so I'm not the only one that knows this.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm really understanding this to a much deeper place, that in order to grow, in order to scale, that I'm the ceiling or I'm the lid to growth within our team, within our organization, if I'm not willing to get things out of my hands and empower people and entrust responsibility
Mm.
with people, rather than just delegating a task.
Yeah.
And so, and that's kind of 101, like, almost in saying that, I'm like, man, like this is like foundational leadership stuff. It sounds easy and it's simple, and I've taught on it so much, but like I'm learning this just to a deeper core, that like there's nothing that I want to hold to myself.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing, even whenever it comes to just like something, the smallest little thing. It's like, how can I get it out? How
Yeah.
can I give it away? How can I bring someone with me and say, hey, like, can you run with this? Hey,
Mm.
can you take this? Hey, can you think around this? Hey, what are your thoughts with this? Because I'm growing, and
Right.
there are other people that have other giftings and other skills, and something that may be really, really small to me could be really, really big to somebody else. And am I missing out on empowering and developing because I'm too prideful to give it away? And that answer has been yes, where I have been too prideful to
Yeah.
give it away because it makes me feel good.
Right.
So that's what I'm learning right now, man, is to what is in my hands that I'm depriving somebody else's growth of.
Mm.
um that's, yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely, it's so funny you said foundational, but I think over and over in our journey, we always have to go back to the basics, because it's like in sixth grade when they said, hey, keep track of these math problems because they're going to help you through high school. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to listen. And I still didn't
Yeah.
listen in high school regardless, but like you, it's the foundational pieces. And something that I heard you and our mutual friend, Stephen Webb or Swebb, I always want to say Stephen Webb because, you know,
Big fan.
not everybody knows about Swebb per they should, but
Yeah.
is this contradictorial statement of the leadership pipeline. Like,
Mm,
throw that thing in the garbage and actually take people on a journey, whether that be 3 or 4 people versus just trying to lead 200 people averagely, but truly
yeah.
on a journey. And you guys pointing back to the model of Jesus has shaped the way I lead. I lead people. I teach people how to lead through that simple statement that you guys even said.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about even practically, how would you take somebody on a journey from going from where they are to where even you have vision for them?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And I know Sweps talked about this. Maybe he did this when he was having a conversation with you, but he and I for sure have had, banter around a microphone
Yeah.
with this topic specifically, because there are so many things that that you develop allergies to.
Mhm.
Some people have seasonal allergies, like myself. Some people are allergic to certain words or certain phrases or certain people, even whatever. But yeah, this idea around kind of leadership pipeline, it's like looking at the actual model of Jesus.
Mm.
What did he do? And there was exposure. So two things. There was exposure that he gave to his disciples. So he said, "Come follow me, like come with me."
Yeah.
Just let's like a simple thing that I'm doing. Once again, kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, what are the small things that I do that I can like bring somebody along with, and just so they can see
Mhm.
things, just so they can see me. And once again, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not perfect by any means, but it's like I want people to come just be next to me. And so exposure. Jesus did that with his disciples. He walked with them for 3 years. They saw him as they were walking along from one city to the next. They saw him as people were coming up. They saw him as he was sleeping. They saw him in normalcy of life,
Mm.
and they learned from him in those spaces. So exposure, and then also wait. It's like was reflecting with my pastor here, and my pastor is my father-in-law too, and we're sharing kind of different youth ministry stories.
Mhm.
And as far as some like things that were like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? We're kind of talking about crisis management a little bit.
Yeah.
And there was an experience that I had at Elevation where we were going to youth camp. It was called Youth X, and we brought a group of like 120 people. And so anyway, we showed up to the hotel and they didn't have our reservations.
Mm.
And I had 120 people like waiting on me to figure out, hey, where are we sleeping? Like all these kids in the back with their sleeping bags and their pillows, and be like, where am I sleeping tonight, Pastor Parker? And I'm like, I don't know, bro.
Yeah.
but
Right.
but it's like there's weight that's given. There's difficult route, and I found that my growth is always a byproduct of the weight that's been given to me,
Yeah.
and the responsibility that's in my hands. So now as a leader developing, but also as I am helping other leaders develop, am I giving them an exposure to me, exposure to other leaders, exposure to opportunities, exposure to normalcy of life, but I'm also giving them weight.
Mm.
Are there also moments in their life where like it's kind of a freak out moment where they're
Yeah.
like, what do I do in this situation? Like, can I make a call of someone and say, hey, show up with me tomorrow at 6 a.m. and you're gonna mow the lawn of the grass? Like, it's stupid. The reason why I said it is because the lawnmower is right outside. You probably
Yeah.
can hear it on my AirPods. But it's like, are we giving people weight, or am I actually am I saying people's no's for them? Am I
Mm.
saying, they're only a volunteer, this is a lot? Like the moment, and I've said
Yeah.
that,
Same.
or like, I know they're busy, like I just don't want to put this on them. And I said that yesterday. And so anyway, like I'm challenging myself here because I don't have it figured out, but also am I giving people exposure and am I giving people weight? Because if I give people exposure and if I give people weight, then I believe that like there is a development that will happen. And trying to process that, trying to like put that into a formula is
Right.
really, really hard. Trying to put a timeline around that because I'm a byproduct of years of development. And so it's hard to put that into a formalized process that we can walk people through. But how could this just be more of a lifestyle and just intrinsic to our culture where we as leaders are just bringing people along?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's, I mean, it's incredible. And I hope, by the way, whoever's watching this or listening, please write that down because it's fire. Um, but I mean, that's the reality of it. I always like to use the two words vision and mission. Like we absolutely need to give people vision, but also mission, like practically, how are you going to get there? And most of the time it isn't a 20-step process. Most of the time it's like what you just said. Hey, come follow me. Let's do this thing together. And humbly accepting, hey, I don't have it figured out either, because nobody wants to follow a leader who thinks they have it all figured out, because there's nothing we can connect with. Like I can't connect with you because I'm a broken person who's selfish, who thinks about myself first, and because I'm a human being. So actually having a humble, smart leader, but also having vision of asking you. And sometimes for me, like I have to get away. I have to like go to a coffee shop for like 4 to 5 hours and just sit with a journal and go, God, where are we going? Like, where is this organization? Where is this business? Where's my marriage going? Cool. Now, how do I get there? And it's usually just our daily practical habits. Like I'm a pretty practical daily person of my habits because that's what we become is our habits. But Parker, give the viewers two things. One, if you have a daily routine, I always like to ask that question. And
That's
two,
great.
Any last words of wisdom?
That last one's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Not the wisest person out there, you know what I'm saying? Just kidding. But I got something. So I actually just preached a message 2 weeks ago, kind of around the concept of rest. I included rest in that. I'm a firm believer that I'm resting for something versus just resting from something. And so I've kind of taken that illustration, that thought pretty literal, where I rest every single morning when I wake up. So I have a pretty regimented morning routine where I normally wake up 5:30, 6-ish. It depends on how many times I hit my snooze. Alarm set for 5:30. And sometimes I'm really good about like, okay, 5:30, I'm up, let's go. But sometimes I'm like, hey, beep. I hit snooze a couple times. So normally wake up about that time. And then I go down and I love coffee. And so I just kind of have this very simple brewing method that I do every morning to Chemex brew. But I love the process of coffee. I love the warming up of the water. I love the grinding of the coffee. Like I love the calculation of like how many ounces of or how many grams of coffee to how many grams of water. Like I just love that process. And so anyway, so that's kind of rest for me. That's therapeutic for me. So I make my coffee, and I'm also learning French right now just because I want to. So I do a 15-minute French lesson on Duolingo. And then I normally take about 3 to 5 minutes and I just kind of sit. I call it sitting in my intuition. And that's a time for me where no distractions, no phone. And I normally just think. I just think about my thoughts. I think about the day. I think about my wife. I think about my child. I think about things maybe coming up. I think about different leadership, like whatever really comes to my mind. There isn't something specific that I'm like trying to think about. It's just like I just kind of let my thoughts kind of go, but I try to pinpoint like and kind of extract some things from them. So very, very simple. And then normally my son wakes up around 6:45-ish. So that's whenever I get him, and then that's whenever we have our time together. Where we play. He's big into basketball right now. He's 11 months old in like 2 days. but
Wow.
homie's walking.
Yeah.
Homie knows how to take a basketball to his Little Tikes basketball goal and dunk it. I
Legend.
mean, yeah, legend, man. I was a basketball player too, so this is just warm in my heart. So anyway, so he and I spend kind of the rest of the morning together, and I always make he and I breakfast. We always normally have. He has one egg, I have two eggs, and so we make breakfast together. And he sits in his little high chair while I'm cooking. I love to cook as well, so that's something really fun for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my morning. That's pretty much pretty regular. Pretty much every morning. And I think that would be also the last little tidbit of wisdom that I would provide as well. Before I get into that, I didn't share the rest of my day. I'm highly productive in the mornings.
Yeah.
So I've seen from around 6 to about 11 is whenever I structure all like productivity
Mhm.
things. If I'm needing to accomplish something, I'm getting it done. If I need to hyper focus on something, if I need to prepare a sermon, if I need to whatever, like I'm focusing on that in the mornings. And then I structure my afternoons kind of like this, very relational,
Yeah.
kind of organic, where I can be flexible in my afternoons, where I may be scheduling my one-on-ones with my leaders or different staff members. And so I try to do that, try to keep the relational side to the latter half of the day and the productivity side on the first half of the day,
Mhm.
because that's just what I found what works best for me. And then on nights, normally there's something, of course, going on either with church, small group, date night, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But I try to keep the back half, afternoon, very very relational, and
Mhm.
before noon, very focused and productive. But also that would be my advice as well. That would be my last little tidbit of wisdom is, do some real soul work to figure out your rhythms,
Mm.
to figure out, okay, what does it look like for you to rest every day? Because to say that rest is just something that I do after I get off work, I believe that you're missing out on a really foundational principle that the Lord wants to show you, the Lord wants to teach you. If you can find moments of rest throughout the day rather than just resting from your day.
Yeah. Well, it's so good. I appreciate you being on, Parker. I hope that any viewer, you added some sort of notes and value to your day by listening to this. I appreciate it, man.
For sure, bro. Thank you so much, man. I love
Yeah.
getting to hang out.